So, first of all, thank you once again for speaking with me on Pop Culture Weekly with iHeartRadio. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
This year, once again, you are co-hosting the National Memorial Day concert. How does it feel this year, particularly, as we are starting to come out of this mess?
Well, I mean, in some ways, it's serendipitous in a way. To think when you think what it is. In other words, it's a National Memorial Day concert. Because in some ways, I've kind of acquainted what we've gone through this past year with the COVID. When I bring it up to people or in discussion, it comes up what the whole world is going through. I say, well, you know what? This is our World War II. This is, our parents went through a time. I mean, at least people around my age, our parents, our families, my uncles, my whatever, went through a period that was, in a way even more devastating, because it's something that, it was circumstances. In other words, and it was viciousness. It was people kind of killing each other, and the world was aflame, and we had to like fight for existence. As opposed to this was just a fluke of nature that we just ultimately medically had to combat. And we did. So in a way, it's like this is the cross we had to bear, this generation and the generations of this era. So in other words, when we look back on this, God willing, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, we say, oh, wow, wasn't that a weird, horrible, terrible time? But we got through it. We did as we, luckily we were prepared for it, just as they did for the Black Plague back then and back for the Spanish flu and whatever it may be. So these are the thoughts that went through my head. And so to think that we still yet have to, like, this is going to go away. In other words, we're going to fix this. But our military, the whole thing with the things like Memorial Day, that's probably going to go on. Mm-hmm. In other words, there's going to be need for us to do what we need to do, and we're going to have to rely on people to help ensure the kind of freedoms that we've embraced in this country and nations like us.
This year, the special will have a tribute to honoring those that we lost and the heroes of 9/11 being the 20th anniversary. How is that for you, especially? How does that resonate with you?
Well, again, it's just going to be one of those touchstones that we all have that were around when that happened, or are old enough to remember what it was like when it happened, and just as as a kid growing up, we were always told about, this is what happened, and December 7th, 1941 was such the day that lived in infamy, as Roosevelt so aptly put it. So same thing, September 11th. 2001, it's going to always be a day that lives in infamy for us in this country, but it's also it's like a wake-up call too, and it's a reminder of that. Until the human race can kind of ultimately get it together on a basis where we're all maybe smart enough and advanced enough and kind enough to be able to say, yes, we can live as one, we can live in peace, but there's going to be these instances, and we're just going to have to deal with it. And because of the nature of it being, what we're talking about here, like acknowledging Memorial Day, there's going to be those times we're going to have to rely on those people who have made that decision. Yeah, I'll step up. I'll be the one to try to straighten this out and make things right. Because I look at it this way: if 9/11 wouldn't have happened, then those, whatever the number is, it was in the thousands mm-hmm. of people, not just in those buildings that passed away, but all those members of the military who then went over there, had to go into conflict, and then forever are gone. And those families, they look, how do they look back on 9/11? That's the question. I look back at it as a person who, came through it basically unscathed personally. But what about all those families that can look at 9/11 and say, Jesus, if that wouldn't have happened, so-and-so would still be here.
Yeah.
And those are the things we can't forget. And that's why it's important.
You've hosted nearly every year. Why is this something that is so important for you to clear your schedule for and show up?
Early on, I realized that it was, and I've said it often, and it's the truth. It is the most important thing I do every year, and maybe it's because I didn't realize it would be that. In other words, I didn't go into it thinking, "Oh boy, this is going to be something. This is going to be monumental." I went into it totally with blinders on. Memorial Day was not, and I may have said this before, maybe even said it to you last time we talked, but Memorial Day was a holiday, but it wasn't like on my list of like, oh God, I can't wait for Memorial Day to come around. It's not like Thanksgiving or Christmas or Easter where you're thinking of all the good aspects of it. But yet I didn't have a lot of negative aspects about it either. I had a lot of family in the military, a lot of them in World War II. They all came back. They never talked about it much or anything. So it was kind of one of those things that wasn't a topic of conversation. So Memorial Day was like it was for many people. It was the Indianapolis 500 and barbecues and the beginning of summer.
Mm-hmm.
But when that day in 2002, when Charles Durning, the actor, asked me if I would participate in the concert, and I thought, oh, I got to love Charlie, and Charlie was a vet himself, Silver Star recipient. So that might be kind of an interesting, fun thing to do, fly to Washington and do a concert in front of this multitude of people on the west lawn of the Capitol. That sounds kind of exciting. Sure, Charlie, let's go. The next thing I know, I'm on a stage in front of 200,000 people. And next to me are screens showing planes flying into the World Trade Center. And behind me is the Washington Symphony Orchestra playing Mozart's Requiem. And I'm reading the words of 4 New York firemen who lost their sons in 9/11. And they're sitting right in the first row in their dress blue uniforms with their wives, and 200,000 people in front of me in the Capitol building and the flags flying. And I am lit up. I'm thinking, how do I get through this? And then it hits you at once that this is not an acting job. I'm recounting history, and I'm recounting it to the people directly, to people who affected personally. And it just came all crashing down on me. And it really, when I walked off the stage, which was kind of like an impromptu thing, when I concluded it, and to just kind of greet them and hug them, and I totally lost it. That's when and they were strong. They were stronger than I was. And as I walked backstage, and literally my legs felt like jello, I thought this just hit me in such a way that it's hard to describe. But all I say is when I spoke to them afterwards, the people who run the concert, I said, you know what? If you ever need me again for this, I'm happy to show up. Well, little did I know this will be my 20th year doing it now this year, that it would lead to me coming back for a few more years as a participant. And then when Ossie Davis passed and they asked me if I would host it, I was humbled and flattered to take that position. And I did it, I think, 1 year on my own, maybe 2. But that's when I told him, I said, you got to bring in Gary Sinise. I said, this guy, at least in my line of work, nobody does more for our military than this guy. So, and I think he would respond as I did. And of course, he did. I brought him in to actually just perform with his band that 1 year. I think this maybe the second year I was hosting it. And of course, at the end of the concert, I saw it on Gary's face. He looked at me and said, hey, Joe, if you ever want me to do this again, I'm here. I said, Gary, how about we just do it together from this point on? And that was that. So that's it. That's how it came about, and that's why it is such importance to me, because this goes beyond. I'm very blessed to do what I do for a living and been very successful at it. This gives me a chance to acknowledge why I'm blessed to be able to do it, because of sacrifices other people have made throughout our country's history.
That's powerful. And, that's one of the things that I love about it, is that so many stories are, I was just speaking with Gary actually, and, he was saying he never really asked his family to talk about the stories that they went through, serving our country. And so many of those stories are lost. And this helps to shine a light and make it history, hearing these people, and it opens it up to, people that may not have heard this otherwise. A Joe Mantegna fan might say, oh, he's hosting this, let me check it out. And now they're exposed to, a really vital, important part of our history, and more specifically, these powerful stories of heroes.
No, exactly right. I mean, because you never know where. As for me, like I said, if Charlie Durning wouldn't have asked me to come see that be part of that concert, I don't know. I don't even know if I would have known it existed.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know it's a broadcast on PBS and all that, but I hadn't heard about it. It just never crossed my. And like I said, the other great thing about it, I was able to bring some of my uncles to the event over those 20 years, and especially two in particular. Two of my mother's brothers. My mother had 4 brothers, all fought in World War II. Never talked about it, any of them. And we're talking about one guy who spent a year in a German prison camp because he was shot down, my Uncle Tony. Then we got my Uncle Willie, who fought with Patton's army and was wounded and was had a Purple Heart and all of that. And so by bringing them to the concert, which I did, it opened them up, and all of a sudden they became, they were kind of able to kind of talk about it and get and come to grips with that whole thing with themselves. And that was really a beautiful thing. I'll never forget the one year I brought my Uncle Jack, who had been a Marine and who was on the USS Enterprise, World War II. And he was a Marine because he was one of Halsey's aides at the time, because even though it was a Navy ship, they had like 10 Marines who were acted as kind of like, security for the Admiral. And it happened to fall on his birthday, the rehearsal for the concert. Mm-hmm. So I bring him and my Uncle Willie, his brother, who was the Army vet who fought under Patton. They're sitting there, and they're both like in their 80s at the time, watching the rehearsal. And it happened to be that the Marine choir was rehearsing. And I happened to mention to them that, like, I want you to meet my uncle, because my uncle's a Marine and he was on the Enterprise. And I said, and actually today's his birthday. Instantly, the head of the Marine choir that got the guys together said something. They all formed a circle around my Uncle Jack in their red and white uniforms and sang happy birthday. And my Uncle Jack, for the only time in my life, I saw him standing there just crying like a baby. And I get choked up thinking about it, because he said to me afterwards, he says it was the most incredible thing that had ever happened to him in his life, because he was so proud to have been a Marine during World War II. But it was something he just didn't, he felt that those memories were just not something necessarily to talk about or relive. And here was a chance to just kind of let it all come, So that's the kind of stuff that's just, for me, unforgettable, and feel very blessed to have had the opportunity to, be a part of that.
It's powerful, and it's powerful art. It's powerful television. It's powerful stories. It's powerful performances, and I love being a part, my small part, and being there every year, and I love watching it every year, and I love what you do every year and your passion for it. So thank you, as a viewer, for what you're doing, because it's such important, great work.
Well, you're welcome. Thank you. I mean, because like I said, we need people like yourselves to spread that word and put it out there. And that's what we do it for. And I'm especially excited about this year, because it's given us, even though we're having to do it somewhat virtually, because it was, last year was kind of sprung on us fairly quickly, and we had to kind of scramble and get it together. And still, I thought it was pretty interesting and really good. But this time, they've had that whole year to kind of think about it. And I think we were able to really put together something that's really kind of unique and special. And I was really impressed, because, Gary and I just finished, taping our segments for it. And so they were able to really put the time and effort to since we have to do it this way, and then God willing, we will be able to go back out live and do it next year. And that's everybody's intent. And I'm pretty sure that's what's going to happen. But I think we've learned a lot with being forced to, that whole thing, necessity is the mother of invention. Mm-hmm. So I think we came up with a really good program that's going to be very, I think it's really terrific. So, I'll be curious to see how people respond to it this year.
Well, thank you so much, sir. I could talk to you forever, as always. You are a delight, and I think it's going to happen next year. We're going to be talking in person next year.
I think so. I look forward to it. I especially look forward to talking to you again. You're one of the pros in this business, and I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. And you have an excellent weekend and an amazing Memorial Day.
Same to you, my friend. Take care.
Thanks. You too.
Bye-bye.